I cried. I didn't want him in an institution. I didn't. And all the time he was in there, I cried.
Parents were told many times to place their child better for their family, for their marriage, for them, even for their child. They placed him in a distant institution.
The second floor, it was for babies and little kids, and they were in cribs. And I spent my whole day, every day, feeding children and teaching them to eat and trying to wean them off of feeding tubes. But they were institutionalized.
In the beginning, we believed somehow that by having the specialty supports and services in those places, we could make them people better. So you had all the professionals who had all these initials after their name going to deal with people and make them better, and then they'd come out. Well, they never came out. So, I mean, it was just turned into a warehouse for people.
It's hard for people to believe there used to be 30,000, 40,000 people from this state who were developmentally disabled or mentally ill who were living in large state institutions. Some were as large as 3,000 to 4,000 people.
There weren't enough of us to go around to be able to really meet their needs, and so positioning was always a challenge. Eating was always a challenge. Lots of kids in diapers who probably could have learned to use a toilet, but just there wasn't enough staff to get to them, to teach them.
But you couldn't be, in my view, a decent human being and walk in that. Even the best of institutions, even in the best state hospitals, even where there were people that truly cared that worked there, it was revolting, and it was inhumane, and it needed to change.
When I lived there, it was not a pretty thing to see. It was people living like you're in prison.
What I remember more than anything else was crying when I would leave Southgate Center at the end of the day because I could leave and they couldn't, and it broke my heart.
I'm not no institutionalized image. I am a human being just like everybody else.
We used to cry when he had to go through that door back. It was just as if he was frightened. I've already seen him with markings on his body, and whenever I would try to find out what had happened, they would say, "I don't know, Mrs. Day, I don't know, Mrs. Day. It didn't happen on our shift."
The doctor told my parents the institution would be better for me, and it wasn't. We were getting abused physically and mentally until somebody sued the state of Michigan to get us out of Plymouth.
News reports of beatings, sexual abuse, and neglect at the Plymouth Center have been brought to light in recent months. Just this month, 50 crimes against retarded residents were verified by a state-appointed task force investigating the center. Revelation of the goings-on at Plymouth has resulted in many high-level resignations, attendant firings, and suspensions. But perhaps more far-reaching was the revelation by the Special Task Force that abuse will occur as long as there are large state institutions.
The lawsuit against Plymouth Center really was the impetus for thousands and thousands of people moving to the community.
Basic human rights. We must not lose these rights because of a mental or physical disability. We have the right to live in the community.
Our purpose was to move people out of largely 3 state institutions in Wayne County, and also to bring people back into Wayne County who had been placed in outstate institutions. We did this by largely developing 6-bed adult group homes and also children's foster homes.
I'm glad I was no more institutions. It was like I got that I'm glad I got the hell out of that place.
At the time, the state had to send out a request to let the neighbors know that a group home was coming to the area. And people had not had an opportunity to interact with some of the people who unfortunately had spent many years in the institutions.
I certainly remember attending many tense, heated, even hostile township and city zoning hearings talking about group homes that were being developed. And of course, there were even instances where there were fire bombings and shootings. I mean, it became that hostile towards people with disabilities who wanted to live in the community.
I can remember going to some of those hearings and, you know, almost fearing for your life when you left. I can remember one time coming out to my car after a hearing and finding that my windshield had been painted black during the hearing. We got a lot of harassing phone calls and hate mail kind of things that went on at that time.
To use the R word, to refer to somebody in such a derogatory and pejorative way as a retard is offensive, and it happened quite often back then.
I think the real issues were fear, and after people moved in, essentially those fears were dissipated.
They keep up their home, they are respectful of everybody in the neighborhood, and they're just very nice to live with. Very nice.
The group homes, of course, were the first step in liberating people to live in the community, and then obviously the evolution of which Community Living Services has been a national leader is allowing people and offering them the opportunity to live in their own homes.
We thought that in those days we could pick out people who could live together. We essentially went into the institutions and searched around for people who we thought were compatible.
You know, it's hard enough to find one person to share your life with, but to find 6 people that are uniquely qualified to live together, that just doesn't happen.
How can choice and control exist when you have to live with 5 other people? You didn't have a choice over who those people were. You didn't have a choice where your home was going to be. So we couldn't fulfill our mission and keep that type of a model in play.
Our preference today is to help people find homes of their own. We locate housing for them and we provide supports to them to live in their homes of their choice and with whom they want to live.
My life today is what I want it to be. Live on my own, where I plan to judge middle school on.
We were fortunate enough to learn about self-determination from those who had started very early on, and it was supported by a national grant. And we were able to participate in that grant.
One sailor's got a grant, signing up people. I raised my hand and said, sign me up, I wanna start my life over again.
When people own their own place and set their own patterns, their own rhythms of the day and things, it's a whole different world. It's an entirely different atmosphere. People thrive.
And now we just have a much different attitude. It's like a can-do attitude that people are going to be able to do things and succeed. And if their house isn't perfectly organized, it doesn't really matter. We're not on inspection mode, we're on life mode.
Well, this is a movement that we have that it actually helps a lot of people out, and it actually makes people have a good story to tell about why their life been changed from being in an institution to being in their own house, working in a real job, and just being in the community having friends. This is something that a lot of people would never thought they would have in life.
When I look at those self-determination, I take the first word, self, and look at you. Then you take the other word, determination, and your citizens within your community.
The budget actually comes in effect from after your purchasing and planning.
You get to choose who gets paid by you. It's like you're the boss. And that's what I like about it. Even though I don't feel I'm a boss, but I enjoy the fact that I can fire and hire someone if I need to.
I always describe the job as helping him have a life. And, you know, we've had people who really do that. And so that's, to me, that's the big deal, is really owning the process of hiring and potentially firing people.
Self-determination to me is freedom, responsibility, inclusion.
It's a way of life. It's for people to just have that freedom, and you having a life that you always wanted to have but you never could, and it gives you that empowerment that you are in control of your own budget, your own everything. It basically lets you know that you have more of a say-so what goes on, and it gives you that freedom just to be more independently.
They told me that because I'm in a wheelchair, I couldn't get married, but I fooled them and got married. And when I married her, she was the best thing that came into my life.
Everybody should have that ability to live a self-determined life. And I feel good by living that life now. And I recommend self-determinations for everyone.